Hello, my name is Aviva and welcome to part 2 of my Crescent City reading vlog. So in case you're unaware, you missed it, you're new to my channel, something along those lines, I did vlog myself reading Crescent City book 1. I shared all of my reactions, all of my thoughts as I was reading it, and if you wanted to check out that vlog, I will make sure to have it linked in the description below. This vlog is technically my part 2 to the Crescent City series, and I will be reading House of Sky and Breath. I didn't even know the name of the book until right now. But my point is that I'm ready to get started on this book. It's currently Wednesday, the day after the release. I just finished reading Crescent City book 1 and I'm ready to get started on Crescent City book 2. So I'm going to take you along for the ride. I'm going to share my reactions, my thoughts as I'm reading it, everything along those lines. This video is going to be spoiler filled. I asked everybody on Instagram what they wanted me to do, and the majority of people did say they rather see my reactions than keep it spoiler free. So that's what you're going to get. I'm going to get started on reading this and I will update you guys when I have something to say. Oh, and before we both forget, make sure to give this video a like and also subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed.
The next day.
Hello, it is now Thursday and I'm officially 110 pages into this book. I didn't end up starting it last night because I decided that I wanted to sleep on the ending of Crescent City 1. Like, I had just finished it right before I started this vlog and I was planning on picking this up, but I decided, you know what, most people ended up sleeping on that ending for like an entire year, so I can take one night just to like process it all. So I woke up all fresh, ready to go. I got 100 pages in and I'm already loving it. So what do we know so far? Hunt and Bryce still have not slept together. I'm happy that we didn't miss it or anything because I obviously want to see that, but also it's like, come on, why are you waiting it out to winter solstice? Like, I like the slow burnness of it and I shouldn't have expected anything less, but at the same time, I'm like, come on, I'm burning up here, you know? And then this new guy that's coming in that is now betrothed to Bryce, I get that it's just like stirring up drama and it's making for a very interesting storyline, but like, come on, Hunt and Bryce, I am convincing myself that they're mates. I'm going to find every little, hint towards it. They're gonna end up together. Sarah J. Maas, she's giving us, the thing that we want and we're not gonna get screwed out of it. So this new guy, it's just there for the drama. I am very, very convinced with that, but it's fine. It's all good. Anyway, for convincing myself that Hunt and Bryce are mates, I was looking on page 33 and it says, Bryce had developed a keen awareness of Hunt's presence, like scenting lightning on the wind. He had only to enter a room and she'd know if he was there by that surge of power in her body. Like her magic, her very blood answered to his. And I'm just saying, like, that is very mate-like. Like, I know that I'm trying to make this happen in my head, but I also think that, like, there are clues that are pointing towards the fact that they are mates. And maybe the fact that they haven't slept together yet is because the second that they sleep together, we're gonna find out that they're mates, and Sarah J. Maas doesn't want to give it to us too quickly, right? Also, on page 84, Ethan was talking to Bryce about how Connor had suspected that she was his mate. And if you've read Throne of Glass and you remember in Queen of Shadows when Selena went and visited Sam's, wherever he was buried in, whatever, and she was talking to him and she's like, you know what? I don't know if you were my mate, but I thought it at some points. And I thought that it was just very similar, the idea of it, that like Connor thought that Bryce was his mate the way that Selena thought that Sam was his mate. Because if you saw Crescent City book 1, my reading vlog for it, then you know that I had already like looked at them the same way, that, Connor and Sam in past relationship essence, whatever you want to call it, felt very similar to me. And that's another reason why I think that Hunt can be endgame, because Connor is being looked at the same way that Sam was being looked at, in the sense that like there was already a past loved one and therefore Hunt is not the first person we're meeting. I can take this theory with Connor and Sam as parallels even further, by the way. On page 94, Ethan was talking to Hunt and he was saying Connor was in love with her for 5 years, 5 years. And by the end of it, he'd only managed to get her to agree to go on a date with him. And then Hunt was like, so? And Connor said, you're at 5 months, bro. Good luck to you. And if you remember, like Sam, he was in love with Selena, like basically his entire life. And they only got together later in life, like, after she strung him along for years and years. So the same way with Connor, like, okay, Connor and Bryce, they got cut short a little earlier than Sam and Selena, but at the same time, like, it feels very similar, I don't know why I'm trying to like push this so much, but my point is that I see it. So I wanted to share it.
A little later.
So I'm not sure why it took me all day to read only 200 pages. It's currently like 4 o'clock and all I've been doing all day is reading and I'm only 200 pages in, but it's fine. I've been thoroughly enjoying it. I don't know just what's taking me so long to read it, but it's okay. It's okay because we finally got to the first kiss, literally at page 200. That was a very long wait and it was only a kiss, but it was still a good time. And I'm happy to say that Corden, is that his name? I can't even remember. I'm so bad with names. But the guy that is betrothed to Bryce isn't really interested in marrying Bryce. He is actually the guy that we met in the prologue of the book, Silver, and he's really like a spy for the rebellion. And it's really getting interesting right now.
The next day.
Good morning. So last night I did something that a lot of you already told me was really stupid, and that was jumping to the last chapter and reading it and spoiling myself for the ending of this book. And I slept on it. Well, it happens to be I didn't actually sleep. I had a horrible sleep last night because of a lot of things. It was like storming outside and also all of my thoughts on the book, and then like just in general, like wasn't a good night of sleep. And I am gonna blame that semi on the book, but my point is that after I slept on it, I realized that I had a reasoning for doing that. And my reasoning for spoiling myself for the book was that I wasn't really into the book. So if you remember yesterday, I was like, oh, I only got like 200 or so pages and I was reading all day. And you know what I realized was that I was reading slow because I wasn't loving it as much as I thought I was loving it. I ended up getting to page 400 last night and I realized that not much has happened. And I think the reasoning for that is because we're following so many point of views right now and we keep on jumping between point of view and point of view. It's not like chapter per point of view. Like every moment is like a different person's point of view. And because of that, even if they're not in the same room, we're therefore seeing so much stuff and it's being dragged out so much. Like what happened in the first 400 pages, besides for like a couple of things that I'm about to go through, not much. Like what exactly is this plot? Oh, we're trying to find these two people that one is potentially dead and one obviously ran away. Like, okay, I get it. It's like another mystery that somewhat ties into the stuff that happened in book one. But like at the same time, we're halfway through the book and I don't know, I'm somewhat lost. And I think that's why I didn't really mind spoiling myself. I have spoiled myself in the past. I do that often. Like sometimes if a book is giving me anxiety, I'll like jump onto Google and I'll try like finding out something about, whatever it is that I'm trying to figure out about the book, or I'll just jump to the back of the book. Like this isn't the first time I spoiled myself for a book, but with this ending specifically, I was a little bit in shock when I found out how it ended. And the thing is, I'm not going to talk about it now. I'm just telling you guys, I do know how it ends, but I'm going to discuss all of my thoughts on that at the end of the book because I actually have a lot to say. So with that said, you now know that my point of view is a little bit skewed for the rest of the book. I do want to continue and tell you what I am thinking about the book as I go along. So like I said, I got to page 400 last night and I did tab a couple of stuff that I wanted to share with you. I wasn't in the mood of sharing it last night, so we're going to do it all right now. First up, I was on page 287 and Cormac was talking to everybody and he basically can teleport, which is actually winnowing from Akatar. And he's basically saying like, how do you do that? And he's like, you have to picture where you want to go and then simply allow yourself to take that step as if you're folding 2 points on a paper so that 2 points can meet. And that 100% is winnowing. And I like that they're calling it teleporting because when we met it in Akatar, I was like, winnowing is just teleporting, but same thing. It doesn't really matter what you call it. My point is that people in this book do have the same abilities as the people in Akatar. So with that said, let's move on to my next thing on page 315. You know what? On page 315 is the point where I actually went and jumped and found out what happened in the back, because this was maybe one of the most disappointing things that happened in this entire book. And it was kind of the turning point for me realizing that maybe I'm not actually enjoying this book as much as I thought I was. Does that make sense? Anyway, on page 315, Hunt and Bryce, they just had their second sexual encounter that wasn't even actually physically sleeping together. And then they decide that they are going to call each other mates. And there's like a whole thing about it. They talk for like a page and a half about like, what does a mate mean? Because if you're a fae, then a mate means that it's like a biological level of like, you are connected before you were even born, like you're meant to be, that's what we always expected a mate to be. But we've been seeing this around a little bit, not even in just this book, but in book 1, about how different species consider mates different things. Like sometimes you can form a mating bond. Like there's somewhere in this book that like Hunt's new boss is being mated to somebody else for like a political reason. Like they're not actually mates, but because they're like angels or whatever it is that they're being called, like you can technically like make it a thing, and like now they're mates, so they're bonded on like a different level, but they're not like biologically bonded how the other series we're bonding them, if that makes sense. So anyway, because Hunt is an angel and Bryce is a half fae, I guess it means that like, interspecies can't be mates, even though I feel like that doesn't 100% make sense. But my point is that the second that they were like, oh, so what should we call each other? Because like boyfriend and girlfriend don't really feel like the right thing. They're like, okay, so maybe we should call each other mates. And like, then they had the conversation of like, well, do you really want to do that? Because like, it's a really important thing. If a fae says that like, this is my mate, it's like intense the way that we think it's intense. And they just like decided on it. And you know what? I have been waiting for about 300 plus 800. That's 1,000 pages. I've been waiting for 1,000 pages for us to figure out that they're going to be mates. And then when we got it, I found it to be extremely anticlimactic. And you want to know why? Because for the 1,000 pages that I was trying to like, wait for this to happen for, I kept finding moments of them being like, we feel it internally. Like, this is going to be meant to be. It is on the biological level, like that's what I was looking for. And then they didn't even sleep together, and they just decided that they're mates. Like I was expecting for them to finally sleep together, and then they felt it, like they felt that locking that we saw in A Court of Silver Flames. Like, they literally felt it happening, and then they're like, oh, we're mates, like I was hoping for that moment. And then when we got this, I'm just like, I don't know, So I was just like, I don't know. The second that I found it out, I was just like, okay, well, I don't know. I didn't like how that went down, so whatever. My point is that I didn't really like that moment. Let's move on because I spent too much time talking about that. My next point is that on page 384, what was going on here? Oh, you know what? Okay, so what's his name? Rune was talking to this new spy that we don't know who she is. And I'm getting this feeling that this spy person that they're like telepathically talking to is actually this betrothed queen that we met in book 1 and found out that she has no interest in marrying him, blah, 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 whatever it is. Now they're getting close and, they're developing like, a relationship without even knowing who each other are. But there was this thing that was like, they were talking about like, oh, do you have a family or anything? And he's like, no family, and a true lone wolf. And then she's like, I have a family, they're a very influential one. And just their whole conversation in general, I just started thinking like, what? I think that this spy for the rebels is the queen that, whatever, you know what I mean? My point is that I don't know if I like that storyline. And you want to know why? Is because we kind of already had that in book 1. In book 1, we didn't know who she was, and then he was already falling for her. And then the second that they found out, she was now no longer interested. And now we're jumping into it a second time of like they're meeting again and they don't realize who each other are. And like he's interested and she seems interested. And then the second that they're going to find out who each other are, maybe they'll now want to be together. Like I'm just seeing like a double-edged storyline happening and I'm not sure about how I feel about it. So if I end up being right about that, then I'm just saying I called it, And then let's move on to page 388. This was a whole chapter about, what's his name? Ethan. This was a whole chapter about Ethan basically confessing that he loved Bryce since before he knew that Connor was in love with her, because like they met like 10 seconds before Connor was about to introduce them. And in their first meeting, he's like, oh my God, this is my mate and we're gonna get married and I'm absolutely in love with her. And then he found out that, this is the girl that Connor was talking about, and all of a sudden he had to like hold in his feelings, My thing is that why is everybody all of a sudden deciding that Bryce is their mate? We have Connor and Ethan, two brothers, both pining after Bryce, and like, I just feel like we're like dumping in this storyline. And then we have, the sea creature Therion or whatever his name is, like he's flirting with her. I don't think he's really interested, but I don't know. I'm just feeling like, there's too many, oh, I think you're my mate thing being thrown around. And I wasn't a fan of that storyline. Like, we originally met Ethan and it was like, okay, they were best friends and he was hurt because, she hurt Connor, who is his brother. And like, I got that and I totally understood that relationship. And now you're throwing in the fact that like, oh, he was pining after his brother's almost girlfriend who Connor thought that it was possible that they were mates, whole thing. Like, I don't know. It was just a little bit too much for me and I'm not so into it, And then the last thing that I wanted to share with you is that on page 398, Hunt basically got in trouble with his new boss and she's basically like, oh, I'm sorry, but you have to now stay in the barracks for the next 2 weeks. And it was just really horrible timing because they were about to have an empty apartment because Ethan was staying at Bryce's place for a while. So that's the reason why like they really couldn't sleep together for 400 pages. And the second that they have an empty nest, all of a sudden Hunt can't sleep over anymore. So now we're just gonna push off them sleeping together for even longer. And I'm just like, just give them a break. Let them freaking sleep together, Like we already called them mates and now you can't even see if like they get that physical bond thing, going on. So whatever. Anyway, that was 400 pages of me not loving it, if you can't tell. I do think that the second half of the book could very possibly turn around for me, but at the moment, I very unfortunately am loving it. And everyone's going to probably be like, oh my God, how are you not loving it? It's a Sarah J. Maas book. But you know what? I know that I'm not loving it because I'm not dying to keep reading. I'm forcing myself to keep reading. So I'm going to listen to my self-conscious and not lie to you guys that I am currently not extremely into the book, but I'm going to keep reading and hopefully it will turn around. But another thing is that I already know how it ends and I'm already having feelings and thoughts about that. So I am excited to share with you what I think about the ending, but we're going to have to wait. So I'm going to continue reading. I'll update you as more happens, but at the moment, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. Actually, two more things because two more, not four more. Two more things that I wanted to mention was this book is talking a lot about like, the princes of hell, how there's 7 princes. And I thought this in book 1, but I don't think that I mentioned it in my vlog. But are these the princes that we met in Throne of Glass? Like the 3 princes that came and like, basically like made the entire book of Throne of Glass? Like, I don't know. I feel like it's possible that those 3 princes are 3 of the 7 that we met in this book. But then also there was something about like, oh, maybe some of the princes died. And then I'm thinking like, maybe are the princes that died the ones that died in Throne of Glass, just thoughts. And then also Amrim from ACOTAR. Am I saying her name right? Amrim? I don't know. Anyway, her, who I'm talking about. I have this theory because in this book, it was saying how like this book is currently in year like 15,000 something. And didn't Amrim come to, the ACOTAR world almost 20,000 years ago when her world exploded and everybody kind of like, was able to go through portals to different places and Amrim ended up in the ACOTAR world. So I just have a feeling / a theory / a conspiracy theory, whatever you want to call it, that Amrim actually got to the ACOTAR world at the same time that basically all of the species got to this world. Like, I feel like there was like a kind of a big boom where like, everybody all of a sudden migrated to Crescent City. Not Crescent City, the Crescent City world, because there's so many species from different planets and universes, whatever you want to call it. And I just have a feeling that like the entire Amrim story somehow plays into the history in Crescent City.
A little later.
Okay, new theory. On page 463, Run was talking to the spy again, and something happened to her, and she all of a sudden, like, went away, and he got this feeling that she was having, like, really rough sex, and, like, that was the reason why she, like, went out of their telepathic talking or whatever, and now I'm thinking that maybe this spy is not the queen that he's betrothed to, but maybe it is Celestia or whatever Hunt's new boss is, because there was a mention of that, like, you know, now that she's made it to like someone that she used to think of as a friend, she's now getting to know him on a different level. It said it a couple of chapters ago, and like it kind of sounded like she's not really liking who he is in the bedroom. And then we get this little scene, and I'm thinking that maybe this really nice archangel that is Hunt's boss is really a spy for the rebels, and she somehow is in a really good spot to be a spy, etc., etc., etc. So I'm on page 492, and Hunt has to like calm down right now because he just went crazy, and Run is basically like, Bryce, you have to be the one to calm him down. And Run says into Bryce's head, like, this is how he was the day with Sandria when he ripped off her head. You were in danger then too, like at the end of book 1, you remember? Anyway, she's like, oh, so what's that supposed to mean? And he's like, well, why don't you tell me? And he's like, you seem to know what the fuck is happening with him. And he's like, it means that he's going ballistic in the way that only mates can when the other is threatened. It's what happened then, and it's what's happening now. You're true mates, the way Fae are mates. In your bodies and souls, that was what the difference in your scent was the other day. Your scents have merged as they do between Fae mates. So I'm not gonna lie, I am happy to know that they are that primal mate sort of thing that we wanted them to be. I am just still upset with how it actually went down. Like, they just decided that they're mates, so like, let it be, you know? Like, I was hoping for more of that wow factor when we finally got that moment. And yes, we're getting moments and still like confirmations that they really are the mates we wanted them to be, but I don't know, I'm still ruined for it a little bit.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
I'm not sure why I never made this connection until now, but Ethan is a wolf. He can shift between wolf form and human form. And Tamlin can shift between human form and wolf form. And I feel like there is a connection. And I'm sorry I can't let this go, but on page 500-ish, when they had their first sex scene, and then it was like, you know, that crazy moment where they finally became mates, they like merged with each other, you know, like the little clinking of like, you know, their inner souls. It would have been so much more interesting if they actually like were like, oh my God, you're my mate, you know, at that moment, instead of being like, well, I already knew you were my mate, and now that we slept together, I understand what it means, you know? Like, I feel like it could have been swapped a little bit. Like, what if they had said like, okay, yeah, you're my boyfriend, you're my girlfriend, way back when, and then now when they finally had the chance to sleep together, it would have been like, oh my God, you really are my mate, I feel it, you know?
12 seconds later.
So on page 516, right after Hunt and Bryce basically explain that they teleported when they banged because their magics merged, and then Cormac is saying like, you know, your powers came from the gate and like we don't understand it, and maybe you need Hunt to use your powers to the fullest because of how you came to be with your powers, you know, and that basically like they have to be together to use her powers to the fullest. And this isn't exactly like the Karanam, whatever you want to call it, from Throne of Glass, where like, you know, they hold each other's hands and then all of a sudden they could like use each other's powers. But I feel like it feels really similar to that. And maybe it's somewhat the same thing, but in Crescent City, they don't really know what Karanam, I'm totally saying that word wrong, but you know what I mean, is, you know what I mean? You get it? You get it? Come on, I'm making all these connections here. Why is nobody here with me? So I officially just got to part 3 of this book. I'm at page 533, chapter 48. And I feel like the only thing that I really know about this book so far is that Sophie, the person that we were looking for this entire time, is actually dead. I feel like I have more questions than I do have answers, but we're gonna keep going. Okay, 10 pages later, and we found Emil now, and he doesn't have any powers, and he knows nothing about what Sophie was up to or how she really knew Danica or what the hell was going on. So he's kind of useless, and now I am questioning as to what's going to happen in the rest of the book. So I'm on page 556, and we're talking about Ariadne, who is this new dragon person that Ethan basically stole from the astronomer. And it says, among its many uses, dragon fire is one of the few substances proven to harm the princes of hell. It can burn even the prince of the pit's dark hide. And does that not sound a little bit like Aileen's powers from Throne of Glass? Because the princes were afraid of her fire if she had enough power of it. So is Aileen some sort of dragon that is kind of like this Ariadne person? I don't know, I'm seeing similarities there and I wanted to point it out. Okay, page 566, Hypoxia is back, Queen Hypoxia. Am I saying her name right? I have no idea. My point is, though, I don't know why I didn't, connect this earlier, but she's referenced as a witch. She's the queen of the witches, and she has a broom. She flies on a broom. She has a little bit of magic, all of that sort of stuff. And why did I not remember that in Throne of Glass, Manon, the 13, all of the witches in that story rode brooms. They all grabbed the brooms out of the storage closet at the end to go and fly and help with the war, everything like that. They're literally referenced as witches, And I'm just saying, I think that maybe there's connections there too. So I just got to page 645 and Hunt and Bryce just walked into Celestina and Hypoxia making out. So I guess I was really off with my theories of both of them possibly being the spy.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Okay, so now that Hypoxia and Celestina is out of the question for being the spy that Rune is in middle of falling for, do you think it is possible that the Hind is the spy? Because they were just telepathically talking again, day and night, and basically Day was saying how, I was there and I saw you with the harpy, so I didn't come close. And then Rune was saying oh, well, I'm happy that you weren't the harpy because I hate her. And she's like, well, what if I was someone you hated? And then she went and she had to leave because she had to go have sex that she didn't want to have with somebody that was really aggressive. And the Hind kept sleeping with the guy that used to hurt Hunt. So I'm just thinking that it kind of makes sense. And that would be a really interesting twist if the Hind, who everybody kind of hates at the moment, is actually the spy that Rune is falling for. Another very weird theory that randomly popped into my head for no specific reason in the moment. But do you think that Jezebel is the same type of person as Amren? Because Jezebel likes to collect things. She's an antique dealer. She's also been hinted at as to be very old. She knows the princes. She's been around for a while. She just knows so much stuff. She's so secretive, And she collects a lot of very expensive things. And Amren is very old, knows a lot of things, and also collects very expensive things. And I just feel like maybe they're the same type of species.
So on page 696, we find out that Baxian is actually Danika's mate and that he knows a lot more of what the hell was going on with Danika. And then it says on page 699 that she wanted to know where we came from, the shifters, the Fae, all of us. She wanted to know what we'd once been, if it might inform our future. And I feel like that was the underlying idea for this entire series, because there was so much mentioning of where's everybody from, and everyone migrated from somewhere, and the portals and the Northern Rift, everything along those lines. I feel like that was a good summary of what the hell is actually going on, because this entire book I was like, okay, first we were looking for Sophie and her brother, and then when all of that ended up being nothing basically because Sophie was dead, and then they found the boy and his storyline is over with, I'm like, okay, well, what else is going on in this story? Because I'm a little bit confused on the plot line. And I feel like, it's now finally coming together of okay, well, the whole idea was really that Danika was behind everything that was going on. She had all of these secrets, and we're slowly finding out what the hell she has been up to before she died. And now I feel like that explains it a lot. She was just basically researching into everybody's past, trying to figure out what the hell happened before the Astri came into, leadership and everything like that. And I feel like it is slowly coming together. Okay, so this is making all a little bit more sense. Baxian said that Danika learned about Sophie's existence while investigating Thunderbird lineage as part of her research into shifters and our origins. She traced the bloodline and then confirmed it by tracking her down and sensing her. So being Danika, she didn't let Sophie walk away without answering some questions. And then basically they ended up exchanging some information, and Sophie ended up with the information that Danika had, that Baxian had given her about seeing something important in the archives of the Astri. So that
that was all of that special information that everybody was kind of after. And then Sophie ended up dying with the, information on her arm. And now they're going to go and try to get this information from the Astery archives, etc., etc., etc. But I feel like, it's making a little bit more sense. I did want to point out, though, that I feel really bad for Bryce about the fact that her best friend lied to her about every single important thing about her life. Like, it's not really touching upon that. And like, I feel like they mentioned it here and there of like, oh yeah, but I feel so bad for Bryce. Like, doesn't it hurt her every single time she finds out about another thing that Danica lied to her about? But like, I feel like it should be even more. Like, for some reason, like, Bryce isn't as mad at Danica as I feel like she should be. Like, if I had a best friend who supposedly loved me so much and literally lied about every single thing in her life, the fact that she had a mate, the fact that she could, she was a bloodhound, she could scent other people, and the fact that she was researching all of this stuff and she had like, a secret college thesis, everything along the lines of what's been going on in the past 2 books. Just the fact that like she was such a liar to her best friend, who supposedly was the only other person that she loved in this entire world minus her mate. I don't know. I feel bad for Bryce in that sense.
A little later.
Okay, so I just finished reading this book, but I already did know that Bryce was ending up in Rysand's world. So she ended up teleporting to another world to try and save the information that she found at the end of the book, which was basically that the Astery was funneling everyone's powers to kind of, keep them alive. So they kept basically being parasites to other worlds, and they were jumping from world to world and basically taking everybody's powers. And Mingard, the place that, Crescent City was taking place in, is actually their origin spot, where they would funnel people into there thinking that they're being saved, but really they were bringing them there and then taking their powers from them without them knowing. So it was like a whole funneling parasite sort of system, and pretty trippy. But basically Bryce found this out and she ended up getting away and going to another world. She thought she was going to hell, but she ended up in Rysand and Feyre's world. She ended up like right on their lawn, and somebody took them in, and she just met Amrim and like the whole crew, everything like that. And the last thing that was said was like, oh, hi Bryce Quinlan, I'm Rysand, which was like crazy. When I saw that last night, my heart literally sank. I'm like, what the fuck, But anyway, one thing that I did notice, because I think I was wrong. Remember I said that I thought that like Jezmi, or whatever her name was possibly the person that Amram kind of was from, But then it said all the way at the end on page 796 that the petite, dark-haired female with angular eyes like Fury's drew up short, and that's Amram. So maybe Fury, being the whole crazy assassin, scary thing that nobody knew what she really was sort of thing, is Amram's sort of, whatever you want to call it, same type of person, So basically, pretty crazy ending. And last night, when I found this out, I was actually not very happy about it. And this is probably going to be a really unpopular opinion, but I happen to think that even though Crescent City the entire time was kind of hinting towards the fact that everybody was part of the same multiverse. Like, we were seeing so many hints that, oh, everybody from this world has the same abilities from people from her other series and everything like that. Like, I was having so much fun pointing it out and everything, But at the same time, I kind of just wish that she left it separate. Like, the fact that she brought in Rysand, and now the next book, which supposedly is going to be Crescent City 3. I heard it somewhere that like the next book that she's putting out is Crescent City 3, which means that it's not like all of a sudden Bryce is going to end up in the Akatar world. Like, no, Rysand and everyone's just going to end up in the Crescent City world. At least that's what I think based off of the information I heard. My point is, which I kind of lost my thought, was, what was my point? My point is that I kind of just wish she kept everything separate, with the hinting that, everything is somewhat connected. Like, I don't know. I kind of had wished that she had ended Akatar at Akawar. Like, I kind of wish she never made A Court of Silver Flames and like continued this series that way. I kind of thought it was perfect the way it was. And then adding in the fact that like, oh, now Bryce is meeting Rysand and the whole crew, and the entire Akatar series isn't even done yet. It's just a little bit too much for me. Like, it's, like when a book is turned into a movie and then it kind of ruins the book for you, like once you see the movie. At least that's for me. Like, I have to read the book first before I see the movie, because once I see the movie, I can't look at it the same way, So I kind of feel the same way about this, of the fact that like two series are mingling, because like for some reason it's just going to change the way that I look at Akatar, Like, I wish that they stayed a little bit separate. But that was like what I felt in the moment. Like maybe I'll change my mind once I read the next book and see how it happens, everything like that. But like in the moment, I don't really love the fact that like, you know, two different series characters are meeting, even though the entire time I made this vlog and the entire time I made Crescent City 1 vlog, I was kind of hinting towards the fact that like I can tell that that is where this whole series is going. You know what I mean? So that is my thoughts on that. I do think that the last 100 pages or so of this book did make it more interesting, but I will say I didn't love this book as much as I loved book 1. Like for the most part, like we had that entire storyline with Sophie and her brother, and then like 3/4 of the way and it kind of like fell apart, and then it's all of a sudden like, okay, well, what are we doing here? And then it did explain itself, so I give it props for that. Like all of a sudden we found out like, okay, well, Danika's, you know, everything that she was trying to find out really led to the astery being parasites and everything like that. And it's like, I see how it all tied in and I appreciate it. And I do think that it was awesome. But at the same time, I didn't enjoy the experience of getting there as much. And that is a big thing for me. Like I really need to enjoy the experience the whole time. And no matter how good it is to look back at it and see how everything ended up playing out correctly and like, you know, with a lot of foreshadowing, everything you want to say, I still didn't enjoy it so much. So I don't really know what I'm going to end up rating this book, but that is like my thoughts. And I don't think that a rating number matters. The point is that for the majority of this book, I didn't enjoy reading it so much, but by the end of it, I'm like, whoa. Also, I've been trying to think about how Throne of Glass could somehow tie into this. And I think that it does have a lot to do with the princes somehow. Like, I'm not really sure, but I feel like there is some potential for Throne of Glass to get mixed in with whatever is going to happen next. Like, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't really like doing predictions so much of like, oh, well, it could go this way, it could go that way. Like, I don't like guessing. Like, that's the reason why I usually wait until a series is completed so that I can just read it all at once and I don't have to sit on it for a year and guess. But if I did have to guess, I would think that it would be very easy for Throne of Glass to somehow get tied in to this whole mix, considering the fact that, like, you know, everything is connected and stuff. And it is possible that everything that happened in Throne of Glass did somehow tie into all of the princes, or possibly even the astery somehow. Like, I'm trying to make a connection and it's not fully there. Like, you know, I'm like short-circuiting a little bit, but like at the same time, I feel something, you know? So whatever. Anyway, if I would be able to, you know, like wish upon a star and be like, oh, how would this play out? What I would say is that, in the next Crescent City 3 book, like, you know, we just got to see all of them for a little bit. They help her get back to her world. They maybe send some help, you know, like something minimally where just like they support her and then she jumps back, she gets back with Hunt, and then they go and save her world. Like maybe Rysand will somehow be able to go and help her world, get rid of the astery, everything like that. But I really hope that it's not a full book where the entire ACOTAR cast and then the entire Crescent City cast somehow mingle. Like, okay, fine, they mixed. We saw that they're part of the same world, two characters from different series. They said hi to each other, but like, let's not make it a thing where like the next series all of a sudden is like all the characters from two different series mixing into one, you know? So that is like my wish upon a star. But also like I might change my thoughts over the next year, over the next day, over the next 2 weeks. Like as people are reading this, my thoughts I know are going to change. Like all of a sudden someone's going to say something and be like, oh, I agree with that, or oh, I don't like that, or oh, that's a good theory. Like I know that that's going to happen. So this is just like my initial thoughts on it. You know, like I just finished it. I haven't really talked to anybody about this. I haven't seen any reviews or anything on it yet. Like, you know, like I've talked to a couple of people, but like we didn't actually discuss many spoilery sort of stuff. So like this is fully my thoughts based off of not interacting with other people who have their own thoughts too. So I'm sure my thoughts will change drastically over time, and I'll probably look back at this video and I'll be like, you know, something like that. But my point is that that's what you're gonna get. I feel like I can sit here for like half an hour and just like chat to you about 1,000 thoughts that are going to come in and out of my brain. But my point is that you got about 90% of it because I shared it all as I was reading this book. You know that ending really blew me away, like very, very mind blowing. I don't think I love it as much as most people will love it. I also think that it was pretty awesome that without even knowing how all this was going to end, I did end up foreshadowing and like trying to point out all of the connections between the worlds. Like I kind of just did it because I started seeing it. And then the fact that we ended up colliding two books kind of made me happy that I ended up foreshadowing it all for myself, if that makes sense. Am I even using the right words? I don't know. My point is that it is what it is. I have nothing more to say. I'm going to let you guys go. If you made it to the end of this video, I would love to know what you thought about this book, what you thought about my spoilers that I added, and what you thought about all my theories, everything like that. Leave me a comment down below. Like this video if you enjoyed watching it. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel, yada, yada, yada. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, enjoy reading.